Anyone who has ever been privileged to direct a film also knows that although it can be like trying to write War and Peace in a bumper car in an amusement park, when you finally get it right, there are not many joys in life that can equal the feeling.
I know myself I don't like to read what something is about before I see it, or what it means. I think that subtlety and allowing the audience to discover for themselves what it is the most important thing.
And I think that if you get involved in any kind of problem solving in depth on almost anything, it is surprisingly similar to problem solving of anything. If you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, that it's surprising how it helps you in anything.
I mean, he was challenging me constantly. He gave me as much, if not more, than I feel I ever could possibly give him.
Kubrick, more than any other filmmaker, understands the potential of movies to be anything. There are no rules as far as he's concerned.
When you go to the theater and when you see them, you're completely surprised. They make you look at life a different way. They make you look at being human a different way. They touch areas that you don't want touched sometimes.
What story do you want to make into a film? You can say a lot of things about what it should be. It should be an interesting story, to offer possibilities for cinematic beauty in terms of photography and editing, and in the end, truthful and honest in dealing with the thematic material. But that doesn't really tell you why you finally choose something. It does become this very indefinable, like, why do you find one particular girl attractive, or why did you marry your wife?
I'm sorry not to be able to be with you tonight to receive this great honor of the D.W. Griffith Award. But I'm in London making Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And just about this time, I'm probably in the car on the way to the studio, which, as it happens, reminds me of a conversation I had with Steven Spielberg about what was the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film. And I believe Steven summed it up about as profoundly as you can. He thought the most difficult and challenging thing about directing a film was getting out of the car. I'm sure you all know the feeling. But at the same time, anyone who has ever been privileged to direct a film also knows that although it can be like trying to write War and Peace in a bumper car in an amusement park, when you finally get it right, there are not many joys in life that can equal the feeling.
I never like to say anything about my films because I think that the pleasure that an audience receives in discovering things for themselves is a great deal of what one likes about good films. I know myself I don't like to read what something is about or to be told before I see it, or what it means. I think the best thing is when an audience looks at a film and wonders whether something that they see is an accident or whether the director or writer meant them to know it. I think that subtlety and allowing the audience to discover for themselves what it is the most important thing. That's why I've always tried to avoid interviews and explanations about the films. I think the film, should be able to speak for itself.
What made him so good?
Well, I think for one thing, you go to movies to be involved in the picture, to get a sense. I want to lose myself up in that screen for a few hours, and in a sense, know what it's like to be human, in a way. Then you come across certain kinds of films that, when you go to the theater and when you see them, you're completely surprised. They make you look at life a different way. They make you look at being human a different way. They touch areas that you don't want touched sometimes.
Yeah.
It's provoke you, which
Right.
is good. And then there's that rarest of films where when you see it continually over years, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you still see more in it.
I don't know, there obviously are cultural differences in reactions to film. Kurosawa went absolutely crazy over the picture. Peter Brook, who I never met, sent me a note from Paris. Well, I mean, I don't know what led me to make any of the films, really, that I've made. I became interested in them when I read them or when I thought about the subject. So I'm now going through the problem of trying to decide what film to make next, and I realize that my own thought processes are very hard to define in terms of what story do you want to make into a film. You can say a lot of things about what it should be. You know, it should be an interesting story, offer possibilities for cinematic beauty in terms of photography and editing, and in the end, truthful and honest in dealing with the thematic material. That doesn't really tell you why you finally choose something. You know, it does become this very indefinable, like, you know, why do you find one particular girl attractive, or why did you marry your wife?
Kubrick, more than any other filmmaker, understands the potential of movies to be anything. He understands that that screen, that form in which you're watching, that you're sitting with an audience looking up at that screen can take you anywhere and do anything. There are no rules as far as he's concerned. The idea of what can cinema do that other art forms can't, how can that create a purely cinematic experience for you?
And I think that if you get involved in any kind of problem solving in depth on almost anything, it is surprisingly similar to problem solving of anything, you know. I started out by just, you know, getting a camera and learning how to take pictures and learning how to print pictures and learning how to build a darkroom and learning how to do all the technical things and so on and so on. And then finally trying to find out how you could sell pictures and become you know, would it be possible to be a professional photographer? And it was a case of over a period of, say, from the age of 13 to 17, you might say, going through step by step by myself without anybody really helping me, the problem solving of becoming a photographer. And I found that, I think in looking back, that this particular thing about problem solving is something that schools generally don't teach you, and that if you can develop a kind of generalized approach to problem solving, that it's surprising how it helps you in anything, you know, and that most of the deficiencies that you see around you in people that say you don't think particularly you're doing their job right or something, is really that, I mean, assuming that they care, and, you know, a lot of people that appear to care or may actually care are still not going about things particularly the right way. When you think about it, I generally find that it's just that they don't have a good generalized approach to problem solving. They're not thorough. They don't consider all the possibilities. They don't prepare themselves with the right information and so forth. So I think that photography, though it seemed like a hobby, and ultimately led to a professional job in photography, might have been more valuable than you know, doing the proper things in school.
When you say, you asked Christiane before, how did he think of himself? The word genius was clearly not allowed.
Not allowed.
Absolutely
If you
not
someone
allowed.
said, Stanley, you're a genius.
Oh, yeah, but can you, it was almost, came close to insult. Because, you know, Bach always said about himself when he was called a genius, that genius is 10% talent, which is the mystery,
Yes.
which we don't know what it is. 90% hard work.
Yeah, no. It's about inspiration and perspiration,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Hard work.
Yeah, and that's what it was almost like a.
He was a hard worker. I mean, some people call him obsessive. Yeah, what does it mean? A perfectionist. I consider it a compliment.
Yeah.
To be a perfectionist. Yes, he was, and he was very demanding. It was very difficult. But so what? You know?
And I had calculated that I could make a feature film for about $10,000. I mean, at this point, I was the whole crew: cameraman, assistant cameraman, you know, director, everything. So I had no cost. I totally failed to recognize what I didn't know about making films or anything. I just thought, well, I got the film made, and but it was very, very dull. With the exception of one or two of the actors, they were all terrible actors, and I knew nothing about directing any actors. It never returned a penny of its investment. Again, not one single offer ever to do anything, from anybody. So I, in about 2 weeks, knocked together another script with somebody, and this time it was sort of a reaction to the other one. This was nothing but action sequences.
What is it that interests you most about him?
Well, I think as a filmmaker, you have to tell a story to the audience. And in so doing, you have to translate it through an image, which means that you direct the eye and the heart to look in a certain way, the way you want it to be, the way you want them to see it. And I never saw anybody tell a story that way. Pretty much every one of the films. You can study the shots. First of all, you don't go study the shot. You go look at the movie and it affects you or it doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
They affected me. And then I went back, when I began to learn more about filmmaking, I went back and I kept saying, why is that one so powerful? Why is it so powerful? And I went back and I tried to trace backwards the shots. And then eventually it was, I started making films before there was video. So I had to do this going from theater to theater, So it was a different thing. I was trying to write down notes. Yeah. So why does something stay with you for so many years? Why did the tracking shots and Paths of Glory stay with you? It's really a person with a very strong, powerful storytelling ability, talent, genius, who could create a solid rock image that has conviction. Yeah. And that is the image. What's in that frame stays in that frame. What isn't in the frame is out. And that's it. You have to compose within that frame.
In getting to know him, I understood what the dynamic of the relationship was. That Stanley would give me advice. He'd collaborate with me. I'd tell him a story I was interested in directing as a movie, and he'd ask me all the tough questions. What do you find interesting about that story? Why do you want to make that picture? Gee, that sounds kind of boring to me. How can you make that interesting? I mean, he was challenging me constantly. He gave me as much, if not more, than I feel I ever could possibly give him. First, he gave me all his movies. And then he gave me his friendship, which meant he gave me his time. And there's no greater gift a person can give to another person.